Hello everybody, welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well and that you are all having a great day. I will tell you this off the bat just in case you don't feel like wasting your time. This is not going to be a conventional video. I'm going to be discussing something that's actually been, I guess, kind of a long time coming. It's about new projects that are coming out. I personally, and I will tell you in all honesty, I have not been this excited about cryptocurrency projects in quite some time. I'm generally overly always interested and excited about the cryptocurrency space, but there are two new things that are going to be launching that have a similar feeling to them of when I first got into cryptocurrencies. So I've been studying and trying to learn as much as I possibly can about these things since I first learned about them. Yeah, so if you are interested in that, then welcome and enjoy your stay. Please have a seat. On the other side, I have to mention this. The opinions expressed in this video are my own and should not under any circumstances be taken as legal, tax, and or investment advice. It is always imperative that you do your own research, especially in the cryptocurrency space. So I know for those of you who are looking at the screen, you may be a bit confused. It's Professor Snape, a couple of Harry Potter-ish looking characters. It's going to all make sense in a couple of minutes, I promise you. We're going to be talking about two things, rather three things. Something called, and it's all going to sound really weird, so brace yourselves. The first thing we're going to be talking about is called MimbleWimble. The next thing is going to be called Grin. And the next thing is going to be called Beam. And they all connect together. And I think, and I mean honestly, I think they're some of the most fascinating projects that we've had in quite some time. The last time I was this excited about anything happening in the cryptocurrency space, it had to be the launch of EOS. It had to be even like some proposals for Ethereum in like 2014, 2015. So not many things get me really like hyped up in the cryptocurrency space. But anyway, without further ado, let's jump into it so you'll understand it a little bit more. At least I hope so. It's not difficult to understand. But when you first hear the things that I'm going to say, especially if this is your first time understanding or learning about MimbleWimble, Grin, or Beam, you're not really going to get it. So I'm going to try to give you an easier understanding from the position that I now understand it myself. Easiest way of kind of saying it. So it says, for those who want to know, I'm sure everyone, it says MimbleWimble is a protocol that was put forward by an anonymous user in the Bitcoin developers chat room by the name of Tom Elvis Judasaur, which is the French name of the fictional Harry Potter character known as Voldemort. So now you understand why that photo makes a bit more sense. MimbleWimble itself is the name of a spell used to tongue-tie victims in Harry Potter. Judasaur left a link to a white paper in which he outlines that by using the MimbleWimble protocol, the scalability as well as the privacy of the Bitcoin network could significantly be enhanced. We're going to be focusing on the actual projects and not so much the Bitcoin network, which is also going to tie into it. I'm going to try to remember to make sure to remember to talk about it as well. So in order to understand the MimbleWimble protocol, the manner in which MimbleWimble transactions are conducted must first be understood. Here's where it gets kind of crazy. MimbleWimble transactions are a derivation of another type of a transaction known as a confidential transaction. Confirmed by former Bitcoin developer, his name is Adam Back. Confidential transactions allow senders to encrypt the amount of Bitcoins they want to send by using what are known as blinding factors. A blinding factor is a random value used to encrypt Bitcoin amounts in a transaction and is chosen by the sender of a transaction. The selected blinding factor should suitably encrypt the amount of that's being transacted, but should, however, not affect the input and output of a transaction. I'm also going to get to that and I promise you, because I know a couple of people are scratching their heads. In a confidential transaction, only two parties involved are cognizant of the amount of Bitcoin being transacted. Onlookers cannot know. However, onlookers can still ensure that the transaction is valid by comparing the number of inputs and outputs. If both are the same, then the transaction will be considered valid. Such a procedure ensures that no Bitcoin have been created from nothing and is key to preserving the integrity of the system. MimbleWimble transactions function in a similar way, except the recipient of a transaction randomly selects a range of blinding factors provided by the sender. The blinding factor is then used as a proof of ownership by the receiver, thus permitting them to spend the Bitcoins. In addition, MimbleWimble transactions also leverage another piece of cryptographic innovation known as coin join. Proposed by Gregory Maxwell, CoinJoin is a mechanism by which payments from multiple senders are combined to form a single transaction, thus making it difficult for an outside party to determine which payment was intended for which recipient. CoinJoin works by obfuscating the inputs and the outputs of the senders and the recipients. Therefore, in relation to MimbleWimble transactions, when combined together, a block could simply consist of a list of inputs, a list of outputs, and signature data. This offers significant space savings in blocks because the other transactions' data no longer need to be stored, only inputs and outputs. So, before you get angry, this is, when I first heard about this, I sat there and I was like, what is, like, I got it, but I didn't get it because it just kind of doesn't make a lot of sense. It's kind of it's like when you first hear about blockchain and you hear that like money is being stored inside of blocks that make a chain as they connect together and the transactions are kind of stacking on top of each other. It takes you a couple of minutes to kind of get it. When the entire talk about the inputs and outputs comes down to every time a transaction is happening on pretty much any cryptocurrency network that we have right now, if you send it from this person to this person, there's an input and an output that happens. If you send it to person number 3, the input that happens from the number 1 and number 2 also gets sent to number 3 as a validation of the other 2 transactions that have happened. If number 3 sends it to number 4, the input and output from 1, 2, 3, and 4 gets sent to number 4. 1, 2, and 3 gets sent to number 4 so that they can see on the network that it actually happens. In theory, you don't really need to know about number 2 and number 3. If all you need to know is that the coins are real, the coins exist, transactions happened, and that at the end of all of this, at the end of the week, after the 4 transactions, that it was simply sent from number 1 all the way to number 4. It's quite weird and quite interesting, I know, but it only gets better, I promise. So, what we have are cryptocurrencies that are going to be launched with the MimbleWimble protocol, and the first one that we're going to be talking about is called Grin, and I'll tell you about their differences because they are the same but very different. They are born from the same tree, but they have different goals at the end of the day, if I can kind of say that. To talk about Grin, first of all, Grin. One of the main things about Grin is that it's, first of all, both of these are heavy privacy networks. They are everything meant to happen on the blockchains through their transactions, especially through MimbleWimble, are meant to be obfuscated. You cannot see what is happening as these coins are being sent back and forth. This is part of the reason for MimbleWimble and part of the reason why a lot of people are comparing these to like the very, very early days of Bitcoin, and also to the Dash, Monero, Zcash, what have you. The private coins that we have right now, it kind of, if you want the honest answer, it kind of gets a bit into crypto politics. There are a lot of people who don't like the fact that transactions on many of the major networks can be traced. This is why people believe that eventually there may be a move by the masses to private transaction coins. It's kind of the easiest way of really saying it. It says, therefore, observers have noted the similarities between the launch of Grin with that of Bitcoin and Monero. Grin has a largely anonymous team, no founders' rewards, and no community spirit that harks back in the day of the early days of Bitcoin and the community spirit. The guy who created it, the guy who is using the name of Voldemort in French, no one knows who he is, and people have been comparing him to Satoshi Nakamoto because he has made sure that he himself and his development team, a large portion of them, if I'm not mistaken, all of them at this point, no one knows exactly who they are, but they've been very honest and very open about everything that they have been creating. There is no pre-mine, so these coins they're not making them, setting aside 10% for themselves, and then, letting the rest of the world, have them and hoping that the prices of these coins end up reaching astronomical amounts so that these guys can end up making money. That's also very important. And the overall spirit, this is why I said this video may not be for everyone. When I first got into cryptocurrencies, it was mainly about, I didn't 100% care about the price. It was more that it was this idea that you'd be able to once again control your money. And even when I listen to podcasts and stuff like that, what has become very, very interesting over the last couple of months is I kept on hearing these people going onto podcasts talking about Bitcoin and how Bitcoin was going to save the world and how Bitcoin was going to change everything. But they kept on mentioning Grin, and I didn't get it for the first couple of weeks. I think it kind of slipped my mind as I was walking down the street trying not to get hit by a car. I'm not even joking. And then it slowly hit me to actually like dig deeper into what it is. And this is why so many, and you'll see why so many Bitcoin maximalists are talking about Grin, or they like the idea of Grin, or even the future prospects of what Grin as a currency and MimbleWimble as a protocol can do for Bitcoin. So yeah, it says the early days of Bitcoin where advocates were more interested in creating something useful than just posturing and profiting. While Grin will certainly attract its share of speculators, its technology is its primary talking point. Grin, oh yeah, this is where it gets even crazier. Grin has no amounts and no addresses, explains its website. Transactions can be trivially aggregated. It's not controlled by any company, foundation, or individual. The coin distribution is designed to be as fair as possible, as they know as possible. It's one of these things that, like, this is what I was saying. Like, when you hear about these cryptocurrency projects, and I said it before at the end of 2017 and also 2018, and I think people got it, but people probably mostly overall just didn't care. So many of the, when I say that we don't need 2,000 cryptocurrencies, I don't mean it because I'm like, oh, we need only 15 of them so that my coins that I have can go up in price. It's like these coins keep mimicking each other. They keep copying white papers and saying that they're this, they're so and so and so. How many coins I saw during 2017 in the beginning of 2018 that were claiming they were faster than Bitcoin, they were smoother or cooler than Bitcoin, they were faster than Ethereum. There were coins naming themselves like derivatives of the word Ethereum or Ripple or Bitcoin to try and show that they were quicker and faster, and they were showing how many transactions. That's fine. That's great. That's wonderful. You do the same exact thing as many other coins out there. But to be able to have a protocol, to be able to create something like this, it's just incredibly, like, the people who are working on the cryptocurrency projects are just incredibly intelligent. And this is why this one really caught my attention. Like, the idea of when you send transactions to not have, where is it? To not have any amount shown, to not show any addresses, to create a really pure thing that's going to be launched very soon, actually. This is why I'm talking about it now. I meant to do this, a couple of weeks ago, but time keeps slipping away. The point is, yeah, these things, if you are, put it this way, if you are into crypto for the sake of crypto, I know that's not for everyone. I know a lot of people are not going to care about MimbleWimble or a Grin or a Beam simply because they're in it for the money. I'm also in it for the money, but I think at the end of the day, crypto is, this world of crypto isn't going to die. Like, crypto is not going anywhere once you cash out back into fiat. This is something that's going to completely take hold. And the general sentiment around MimbleWimble and even Grin, and I'll get to that in a second, is that this, and I use this loosely, and I mean that loosely, that these could be the things that could walk alongside Bitcoin. And I know that sounds a bit weird, but this is just kind of the thing that I get from having listened to, and even after this, please, by all means, as always, do your own research. Listen to what other people have to say, what they're talking about the protocol and exactly what it's going to do and how it could shape finance. Because even the MimbleWimble protocol can also be put on top of Bitcoin, which would then lead us to a world where we have actual private Bitcoin transactions. One of the things that the government leaders, for those who were here in 2018, they said, I don't know if you remember, some of the government leaders in America, they said that they were happy with people using Bitcoin. And everyone was like, why would they be happy with that? They said, because we can trace the transactions. We know who, at the end of the day, who's using it, how much money they have, how much they're transacting to someone else, and they can kind of tell if you're doing something wrong. And it's like, that's not good. But before I continue on with the early days of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, which were so important, and it's really sad that so much of that we needed a market crash for people to kind of become interested in the technology once again. Whether you know it or not, whether you don't have the foresight to be able to tell at the moment, cryptocurrencies are pretty much what you're going to be using in the next 10 years. You're going to be using something in some capacity around the world with blockchain. So I think it's important to, just read, just learn a bit more about what's happening out there. It's not all just Bitcoin. It's not all just XRP. The world is changing rapidly and is changing under the nose of even people who are in the cryptocurrency space. It's all extremely fascinating to me. So when we talk about the actual metrics of the inside of it, it says Grin is uniquely scalable. Since MimbleWimble only stores a small amount of data in the blockchain, this means that it will be cheap and easy to run a full node, and new nodes will be able to sync up with the network quickly and efficiently. This comes down to the fact that you don't have to store number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6. You can have 38 transactions, and all you really need is number 1 and number 38 to see that it actually happened on the blockchain. Nodes efficiently. MimbleWimble was introduced by an anonymous founder, and much of the current Grin development team is anonymous and distributed. It will have a fair proof of work launch with no pre-mine. Further, its cuckoo cycle proof of work algorithm is designed to be more egalitarian and centralization resistant than other alternatives, at least in the near term. I'll get to that in a couple minutes. Grin is one of the few projects that aims to be a true currency and has some of the features that make Bitcoin so interesting. The anonymous founder, leaderless development group, proof of work consensus, no on-chain governance, and no pre-mine. But perhaps the most interesting thing about Grin is its monetary policy, which we are going to get into as well. I proposed this project to someone else so that they could look into it. They did not care, and a lot of people do not care for the proof of work algorithm that the Grin network is going to have. I think sometimes we had a big controversy in 2018 when it came to proof of work networks and how they were destroying the world. And then we had news that 77% of the Bitcoin mining that's happening around the world is actually happening with renewable energy. I think this is kind of where crypto is moving to, especially if we end up hitting like a 10x of the amount of people who are into crypto where we are right now. I think we would logically move over to a more sustainable way of kind of doing this. That's kind of just really kind of what I wanted to touch on, because I think it's very important. We have a huge war going on in the cryptocurrency space between proof of work and between proof of stake. A lot of people don't think that proof of stake mathematically works. We know that from the growth of the Bitcoin network over the course of a 10-year period, that proof of work does work, at least according to our metrics. And that the more computers that you have working these algorithms, the stronger the network becomes. But then you get into a question of we need to find some way of sustainably doing this. And we've seen this move towards Bitcoin. So should other protocols, and eventually when they will get larger and more robust, what have you, I think we will also see a number of them also move over to like a more sustainable future. I don't think proof of work is wrong. I like aspects of proof of work and proof of stake. But everything can be improved on. That's kind of the nicest way of saying it. So here is the Grin website, and you'll notice a big difference in a couple of minutes. And not really much to see here, except for the fact that this is planning to be launched on the 15th of this month. That is 13 days away, at least at the time of me making this video. I will try my best to try to remember to put this in the, in the description below, so that you can all have a read, look around, see exactly what's going on. It's an incredibly fascinating project. Hold on. Sorry, I think my computer just froze. For those who haven't been here before, my computer's trash. 3 of the main properties, oh my gosh, of Grin transactions that make them private are there are no addresses, no amounts, 2 transactions, one sending, one spending the other, can be merged into a block to form only one, removing all intermediary information. As explained in the previous section, thanks to the MimbleWimble transaction and block formation, we can merge transactions when an input is directly sent by input of another. If as this, so here's exactly what I was talking about before. When sending the transactions on the network, it says it's as if when Alice gives money to Bob, and then Bob gives all of it to Carol. Bob was never involved, and his transaction is never actually seen on the blockchain because it's not important. It's not something that you actually need to have. And this is kind of one of the main things. I think somewhere around, I don't know the exact area where it is. From what I've seen, it appears that Grin will be able to, I think, handle 20 transactions per second. That doesn't seem like a lot. But because of the slimming of the transactions that are going to be happening through the blocks, I think they're actually able to handle an enormous amount more transactions that are going to be happening. And it's a lot more, I want to say, like robust. And obviously in the future, we're also going to have a situation where things will be quicker, because on top of this as well, you're also able to lay the Lightning Network. It says Grin is taking a different approach from both of these projects. They're talking about Bitcoin and the Ethereum model. Grin has so this is talking about exactly how many will be produced. Grin has a linear supply scale, meaning that inflation as a percentage of existing supply is very high early on, but gradually lowers over time, approaching 0%, but never actually reaching that. Its overall supply is unlimited, with a tail emission that will continue its perpetuity. I don't have the actual chart here, and it's really weird because I had it before and I completely lost it. It kind of looks like this if you follow my mouse. The supply curve is kind of going to go like this. It starts out like this and is going to completely shoot up straight, and then eventually it's going to completely taper off and go sideways. And after a couple of years, the supply of Grin that is going to be produced on the network is going to be infinite. So there will always be new Grin, but it's going to go completely sideways to the point that at some point you were only going to have 0.02% of what you had before being produced. So like, you know, how we have, what's it called? If you have, you know, thousands being created in one day, let's kind of say that. And then eventually you end up having, you know, 100 made per day and then 50 made per day. You'll never ever get to zero being created, but it'll be as if eventually, as if there's none being created at all, because the emission rate will be so low that you really won't be able to kind of even really tell that any more is being created. That's kind of the easiest way of saying it. The other project, side note, and I mean just being honest, sorry that this video is so weird. It's not easy at all talking about all of this and trying to fit it into one video. I thought about making a Grin video, and then I thought about making a Beam video, and then I thought about making a MimbleWimble video, but they're all completely connected. They kind of all come together, and you'll get it. Once I'm done with these two tabs right here, you'll understand exactly why I had to push everything into one video, because it just wouldn't have really made a lot of sense. It would have been telling me to tell you to like reference other videos that I had made and to look at this point and talk about that. So everything is kind of all together. Once again, if this is your cup of tea or your thing that you're really into, this is all going to make sense relatively soon, I do promise you. Remember, I was talking about, I said here is the Grin website. So Grin and Beam are both MimbleWimble based, but they are very different in the way that they not execute themselves, that they portray themselves to the world. So look at the Grin website. This is the one that is created by the French Voldemort, if you will. It has a certain look to it. I'm pretty sure you see it now with your eyes. Here is what Beam looks like. Very different. Though they are, so Beam is actually launching tomorrow, at least at the time of me making this video. Same similar structure, similar thing. There's no pre-mine, there was no ICO, they're backed by a treasury. They established a non-profit foundation to govern the protocol after the mainnet launch. Here is where they differ. Grin apparently was spoken about in 2016 by the development team when they gave the idea out to the world and said, this is what we're thinking of making, this is what we're thinking of doing. 2 years later, from my understanding and having listened around on different podcasts and on different videos and read different things, the Beam idea came out, I think, at the beginning of 2018, so around 2 years later, with a completely different idea for what they wanted to be. It's kind of like I can't really... what's a really easy way of saying it? Beam kind of aims to be more business oriented and more professional, while Grin is more of a community effort. That's not to say that Beam is not decentralized, and Beam's main goal is not to be decentralized or to have a decentralized network. You can just look at the different websites. You can kind of tell exactly where it's going. And this is why there's been a shift, or like a shoulder turn. I'm turning my shoulder. None of you can see it. Move towards the Grin project by the Bitcoin team, because it shares very similar aspects of it. Beam has more of like a polished look, similar to maybe even Tron, maybe EOS. maybe even what Ethereum has kind of become right now, because Ethereum is also relatively polished and more smoothed out. Not going to read through all of the core features. They share very, very similar ideas, but Beam, especially when you read around over here, you get to like, you figure out exactly, like it says, like one of their frequently asked questions is, if you are so pro MimbleWimble, why didn't you join Grin? It pretty much, I'll read through it. Why not, for those who aren't looking at it? It says, we believe that rapid innovation is best achieved in a startup model. When people are 100% focused on the project and are working on it literally 24/7 hours a day. Also, we feel that some of the technical decisions made by Grin team are less practical and use more cutting edge technology. Since we are literally building money, we choose a more conservative approach and decided to use more proven technologies. Instead, that's why we chose C++ and not Rust, Equihash and not Cuckoo Cycle. That said, we have immense respect for Grin's team and wish them success. We are working together the same goal, bringing financial privacy back to the people and making cryptocurrency more usable in the real world application. So apparently, when you look around, they have contact with each other. Apparently, there was a bit of a spat at some point where they didn't really care for each other. But apparently, they do have a similar connection. But you can kind of tell from this, when you look around, because Grin was first spoken about in 2016, it appears that from the information that I have gathered from looking around on the internet since 2016, that the Grin team hasn't been working on it, like it says right here, 24/7. They've kind of taken like a slower approach to make sure that they kind of have everything together. The Beam team, on the other hand, is more concerned with having a more polished, a more, like I said, this was introduced maybe 8-9 months ago, and now they already have a finished product that is launching even quicker than Grin is actually launching. Privacy based, like it says, Zcash and Monero. Differences between them, it talks about the actual wallets, what have you. So, for those who are wondering, Beam has a capped total supply. This is different from Grin, which is going to essentially be created forever, standing at 262 million total coins. They have an emission schedule, which is the first year's block reward is going to be 80 coins per block. Through years 2, 3, and 4, and 5, it'll be cut in half to 40 coins per block. In years 6 through 9, the block reward will be cut to 25 coins. Afterward, the halving every 4 years until the year 133 of the project when emission stops. And if that sounds a bit weird, it's very similar to exactly how Bitcoin is. Maybe not the total supply of coins. Bitcoin, the last coin won't be mined until the year 2140. So the 133-year prospect number right here doesn't sound too weird when you kind of put it into focus, I guess you can kind of say that. In the first 5 years of Beam existence, additional coins will be emitted by the treasury. The first year, 20 coins every block. In years 2, 3, 4, and 5 to 10 coins per block. It's very interesting to see that from the idea of MimbleWimble, two completely similarly dissimilar projects can completely come from the exact same thing. This is why I said it would have been pointless for me to talk about these in completely separate videos, because they are one and the same. And I think even though they won't mention it, I'm pretty sure they are, how do you say this? In competition with each other. I think that's definitely happening somewhere behind the scenes, regardless if they actually have contact between themselves. I think these are both incredibly fascinating. I won't tell you which one that I'm leaning towards more, simply because I don't want to push anyone in a certain direction. I'm telling you these because I think these are incredibly fascinating projects. I think the future of cryptocurrency, it sounds stupid, is now. They even have a thing right here where it says like win Lambo. It says we don't like noisy, glittering, and impractical things, so no Lambo for us. They do seem incredibly focused on what they're doing. And I will be completely honest with you. I am probably going to buy up both of these. I think they're incredibly fascinating projects. I think there is space for both of them, the same exact way that we have space for Dash, Zcash, Z Classic, Bitcoin private, if you want to throw it in that same sphere, Monero, Zcash, blah, 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 so and so and so and so. I think there's definitely room for a lot of these coins as well. Which ones are going to make it? I think that's kind of the interesting part. This was, like I said, more so for people who are into the actual early idea and core values of what cryptocurrencies were kind of meant to be. This is an investment channel. I don't, for full answers and to give you my opinion, I don't expect either one of these projects to take off for at least the first 2 or 3 years. So if you're looking for like a quick pump and dump to put some money into to become a millionaire, I don't think that's going to happen. I think either one or two of these, and I'm going to say it's probably going to be one over the other. No, I can see both of them. No, I can see both of them existing in their own world. These are going to be coins that are going to shape the way that we view finance, especially when at some point MimbleWimble does eventually, hopefully, get implemented on top of the Bitcoin blockchain. I think these are going to be incredibly important things. I think that's pretty much all that I have to say. It was more so me introducing you to both of these. The protocols behind these are incredibly difficult, and they're very complex. Like, these things aren't what's the word? Like, these weren't made overnight. Obviously, as always, do your own research, look more into them. I'm very excited for both of these to launch. I don't know if I'll be able to, in all honesty, be able to mine these things simply because electricity. I'm more of a buyer anyway. It's kind of what I do. I think I'm pretty much, yeah, I'm expecting like a huge shoot up in price when they first launch, because this is what always happens. Everyone gets super excited, but if we continue to have a sideward sliding market, I think the prices will eventually calm themselves down, and then we'll see through true usage how they're actually going to be. But I mean, yeah, just thought I'd introduce you guys to these things because I think they're incredible. I mean, these are incredibly cool protocols, and I think when you talk about like actual like future use cases for crypto and like the things that we didn't think we like 10 years ago, no one thought that we would have anything like this. Like when we heard about a Bitcoin, it all came down to price, but the thought of being able to have things like this, at least for me, is incredibly exciting. All right, everyone, that is definitely going to do it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you all are having a great day, a great morning, a great afternoon, a great evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I hope it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you once again for watching and or listening. I do appreciate all of your support. And yeah, I'll talk to you all soon. See you.